Hello everyone, C-Dub here. Today we're going to be talking a little more along the lines of the ego and how to identify the ego and to transcend it. So, the ego is basically the voice in your head. The voice in your head that says I, that believes that it is you. And we end up believing it is us. And we identify with this voice. And the problem with that is the ego, for one, believes it's separate, so it's separate from everything else. It believes it is just the mind, so it doesn't always take into considerations your feelings or what's best for yourself, as well as what's best for other people. The ego can be an accumulation of really good things you hear about yourself. Maybe a lot of people said a lot of great things about you. Maybe it was as material as you had a nice body, or you're good looking, or something like that, and the ego then takes this all in and then forms an identity on that behavior. But it can also be the other way around. You know, you can believe that you're unworthy, or you're not a good person, or you're not strong enough, you're not capable, whatever it is. It's these continuous thoughts that end up forming an ego when we are identified with the mind. Now, over 90% of Western world is identified by the mind, maybe even potentially more. Now, we're not identified by the mind always. A lot of the time we are living, we are living in the present moment. But I shouldn't say a lot of the time, because probably more often than not we are identified with the mind. And when we're identified with the mind, we are in an area where the past exists, the future exists, and where pain and suffering can exist and can perpetuate, which means we can perpetuate the pain and suffering. We can also perpetuate an ego identity of how great we are. However, we're not going to see things as a whole. We may not treat the people all around us in the way that we would like to be treated, as again, the ego sees itself as separate. So back to the point, how ego is the voice inside of your head that a lot of us at one point in time have related to and then believe it's ourselves. Now, how the ego is developed is through programming. It's developed through, it's been really developed in our society through schooling and through the media especially. But even through the people around us and our our whole environment really. Now, you'll come to understand it more in the way that well, let's kind of say what we really are. We are consciousness, and we are not the ego, but at times we believe we are. So say this is the ego and this is consciousness. So when we're identified with the ego, right over here, we don't even really realize that we have power over the mind and over our situation, how we always have a choice. Because we've been so programmed with our thoughts and everything that's come into our situation, everything that we have believed about ourselves and about reality, that we end up basically going on autopilot, believing certain things aren't possible. So then we end up having thinking patterns that are very limited in belief. So as we start to become more aware that we are not the mind-made self, the ego, there becomes more of a separation. So we start to see how we are consciousness, how we can actually, over here, how we can make decisions for ourselves, and we can stick to them that are maybe even new, or that we once believed wasn't even possible. So this again brings in why meditation is such a good technique, because it ends up separating from our thoughts. We clear our mind, and so that we can get down to a point where we perceive ourselves as the observer of our thoughts, which is consciousness. So, yeah, let's not go into things any further for this video. Just kind of wanted to give you an overall view. And this gives us a lot of power, because once we understand that we're consciousness, we can use the mind in its most effective way to create the reality which we choose. So we're going to be more aware of our thoughts and more aware of how our thoughts create reality. So as we start to understand how we are the observer and pay attention to our thoughts, we are going to start to see how our thoughts have been creating our reality. And now we can start to think of thoughts about the reality of which we want to create. And after a while, any of those old habits that we've been doing, those old thoughts about ourselves, they will dissipate because we will see ourselves as consciousness and will shine light on these areas. We will then no longer give them light. We will no longer think about them because we will become aware of the thought. So we become aware, I don't know, any example, I'm not capable of doing something. So say, I'm not capable of eating a healthy diet, say. So once we notice that we are thinking that thought, well then we get, okay, no, I'm the observer of my thoughts, so that is a thought that I'm not going to perpetuate. No, actually, I know that I can change my diet. I know that I can do whatever I want. I see, because you set an intention, I see that this is going to be better for me, so I've set the intention that I am going to do this. And whenever you see thought patterns that don't correspond with that, well then you can let it pass. Understand I am consciousness, the observer, and then you go on. And that thought was not even part of your day. When our mind identified, we can think that thoughts ourselves, we can give up and then go on to the next thing, give up, go on to the next thing, give up, go on to the next thing, and after a while we don't believe we can do anything. When in reality we can do absolutely anything, everything, and there's absolutely no limit. So you can think of something brand new right today that no one has ever done and do it, and as long as you believe it, then it's going to come into your reality. It just depends how much resistance you have. Anyways, alright, so let's end it now. It's the C-Dub on the Ego. Peace out. Have a good one. Love y'all.